Kyle Rittenhouse, the Kenosha kid, has just taken a major legal victory. Judge denies motions to issue new arrest warrant and increase bail for Kyle Rittenhouse. Now, this story stems back to a week or so ago when the left was screaming that Kyle Rittenhouse had disappeared. He bail jumped. He was missing. Where was he? And why is he allowed to get away with this? The reality is, the story is quite simple. He had received a bunch of death threats. His legal team moved him to a safe house. Then the prosecutors demanded they arrest him, increased his bail, and a judge said no. You see, the issue is for Kyle Rittenhouse, if he puts out his address publicly, he could be in danger, and so could his family. Now, I want to read this story from Slate and show you what they were accusing of on February 4th, and then give you the latest up-to-date information. But this may be one of the most important stories of the past year or past several years. The story of Kyle Rittenhouse really strikes at the core of the culture war. Is he this murderous far-right extremist, or is he just some kid who was out protecting his neighborhood when riots were breaking out? I think the reality is maybe a little misguided in coming out with an AR-15 or an AR-15 style rifle, they say, in Kenosha when riots were going on. But what do you say? When you have a bunch of rioters going around burning down businesses and destroying your city and the police won't stop it, what do you do? The left has framed this whole thing as though he's some rogue actor who jumped state lines with a rifle to hunt down protesters. In reality, he lived in, I believe, Antioch, Illinois, which is like 20 miles away from Kenosha, and he worked in Kenosha. It's rural areas, I mean, for the most part. So, or suburban, I guess, because you're in between Milwaukee and Chicago. He didn't drive all that far. And the rifle apparently was in Wisconsin in the first place. So these stories that are coming out from the left are typically falsehoods. And I'm going to break it down for you and actually have video evidence. I shouldn't say video. I should say witness testimony where we go over everything that happened. So I'll break it down for you. First, here's the initial story from February 4th. Where is accused Kenosha shooter Kyle Rittenhouse? Prosecutors in Kenosha, Wisconsin, filed a motion Wednesday seeking a new arrest warrant for Kyle Rittenhouse, the 18-year-old who was charged with fatally shooting two people during protests last summer. Prosecutors said the teenager is facing murder charges, moved without notifying authorities. One of the conditions of Rittenhouse's $2 million bond, allowing for his pretrial release, is that he report to the court any change in address or phone number within 48 hours of the change. Rittenhouse, who drove from his home in Illinois to Kenosha in August, is awaiting trial on murder charges for the deaths of two people who were protesting the police shooting of Jacob Blake. You see, right away, you see what they're doing here. Drove from his home in Illinois to Kenosha. Why do they add that? It adds all that does is confuse people. Journalists are supposed to help you understand what's going on. By saying he jumped state lines or drove from Illinois to Kenosha, a lot of people are going to think he drove hundreds of miles. He drove a few minutes. It takes him. It was faster for him to get to Kenosha than it is for me to go to the grocery store. That's ridiculous. They say he's awaiting trial on murder charges for the deaths of two people who are protesting the police shooting of Jacob Blake. Now, I'm just going to stop right there, my friends. Over at the Timcast IRL podcast, we have this story. Actual witness tells insane story of what really went down in Kenosha. 1.1 million views. We have the DC riot squad. Notably, we have Richie McGinnis. Richie, who's sitting right here in the video, and you can check us out at the Timcast IRL podcast. It's one of the most viewed videos we have from October 2nd of last year. He's the guy who actually rendered aid to one of the men who got shot. And the crew that was on the ground, you know what they told us? They said that these protesters were trying to push a flaming dumpster into a gas station. There's video of it. When Kyle Rittenhouse and his associates, his friends, whatever, stopped them and ran up with a fire extinguisher to put it out, that enraged the rioters. The rioters eventually attacked Kyle Rittenhouse because he had a fire extinguisher and was trying to put out the fires. Do you know what would happen if they pushed a flaming dumpster into a gas station? They could have blown the whole place up. That's insane. And here we are. Kyle Rittenhouse may have ultimately made a mistake in being there, or maybe he didn't. Maybe if it weren't for him and his friends, there would have been a blown up gas station and other people would have been seriously hurt and the whole area would have been destroyed. These are tough conversations because if I had to make a choice between a building blowing up and people living, I choose people living. And there's the challenge. Should these people be allowed to, if you're given the choice between a gas station blowing up, assuming no one gets hurt, and the individuals who are shot and killed surviving, I think most people would choose making sure that people survived and sacrificing a building. The problem is in the moment, you don't know what the results will be. So when you see someone pushing a flaming dumpster to a gas station, the end result could be everyone dies when it explodes. In which case, what if the story was different? What if Kyle and his friends did not put out that dumpster fire, literal dumpster fire? They pushed into a gas station and the gas station blew up, killing several people. It would have been way worse. But Kyle wouldn't be facing prison time. And that's the problem. I guess hindsight is 20/20. They go on to say, Rittenhouse's lawyer said in a motion that the teenager had moved to an undisclosed safe house due to an unspecified death threats. The Kenosha County District Attorney's Office is asking the court to rearrest Rittenhouse and increase his bail by another $200,000. Now, he won. We'll get to that. They say the impunity with which Rittenhouse has acted while waiting to be tried for murder, look, they put for murder in italics, is galling and predictably has made him a cause celeb on the far right. He's innocent until proven guilty. And even there have been leftists who have come out and said, that's clear-cut self-defense. Now, of course, the tribalists on the left freak out. How dare you point out the obvious? Some people who didn't live there tried to burn down buildings of the people who did live and work there, and they were stopped. And it's tragic, man. I wish it didn't have to. I wish it didn't happen, so it's tough. But the left is just absolutely trying to destroy anyone who dare oppose them. And you know what, man? They're actually gaining ground. They are. Look at Gina Carano's firing. She didn't even say anything controversial. She didn't. They make it controversial. They say Ben Shapiro is controversial. And I remember I was watching, I think it was some interview. And they said Ben Shapiro, I think it was Bill Maher, maybe. He said, you're controversial, but only because they say it. Like, what's controversial about mainstream conservative Ben Shapiro? Conservatives exist. There you go. So they'll just add that. And then I guess regular people who aren't smart enough to critically think or check the news themselves just believe whatever they are told. Yahoo News reports. Judge denies motions to issue new arrest warrant, increase bail for Kyle Rittenhouse, a major victory. They say the Kenosha County District Attorney's Office said Rittenhouse violated the conditions of his bail after he failed to update the court with his new address. Rittenhouse's attorney said his client had to move due to threats made against him. Rittenhouse has become a cause celeb for the alt-right, with his supporters raising enough money in November to get him released from custody on a $2 million bond. You see what they do here? Alt-right is white nationalist. That's absurd. Kyle Rittenhouse has been defended by some leftists. He's basically just being defended by regular run-of-the-mill conservatives for one, using a weapon to defend himself and the city he works in. And to be fair, he may live in Antioch, but come on. If he's working in Kenosha, it's partly his town too. We can't act like, people who live in small towns. They say, you live in a suburb of, Chicago. Well, Chicago's not your... Listen, I love it when I talk to people. I'm like, where are you from? They go, Chicago. I say, where? And they go, Naperville. And I start laughing. Naperville's not Chicago. It's a western suburb. But we get it. It's basically Chicago. It's the Chicagoland area. It's part of the metro, essentially. And everybody from Chicago, you probably know what I'm saying. For Kyle Rittenhouse, it's his town, too. That's the game they play, isn't it? They say with supporters raising money to get him $2 million bond. Kenosha County Circuit Judge Bruce Schroeder denied the motion to increase his bail by $200,000 and said while his new address could be given to the court, it would not be made public or shared with prosecutors. After what this town has been through in the last 6 months, I don't want any more problems, Schroeder said. Bravo. Oh, good sir. The police don't need any more problems. We don't need to have people's safety in jeopardy in any way. He is right. The judge is smart. It's not about Kyle Rittenhouse. It is a little bit. He deserves to be safe. Everyone is innocent until proven guilty. And in my opinion, based on the abundant witness testimony, because I've had numerous witnesses on my podcast explaining what happened. They were there. They have video evidence. I've seen that. And based on the fact that the far left will seek to cause violence wherever he is, the judge made the right call. If they give out his address and it goes public, then far leftists could descend on this wherever he is and cause more trouble and could lead to more violence. So it's not just about Kyle Rittenhouse. The judge is taking into consideration the surrounding area. It's very smart, very excellent judging. On January 5th, Rittenhouse was spotted at a Wisconsin bar, where prosecutors say he was drinking beer and hanging out with people singing the anthem of the Proud Boys. Oh, yeah, that musical number. He was also photographed making a white supremacist hand sign. That's not true. The OK sign is not a white supremacist hand sign. The media just lies. In response, a judge on January 22nd approved new conditions for Rittenhouse's bond, prohibiting him from drinking alcohol. That's insane. Having weapons, and associating with anyone known to harass others based on their race or religion. It's amazing, isn't it? The terms set forth for their bond. He can't drink alcohol? Well, he's not 21. So I guess he's not supposed to. I guess that makes sense. And having weapons, I guess, makes sense. Look, you're innocent until proven guilty. There are challenges. I know many people say, shall not be infringed. So maybe that does trump everything, the Second Amendment. You're not convicted of a crime, awaiting trial. Depending on the trial, it maybe makes sense. You know what? I got to admit, I'm pretty much on the fence on that one. The Constitution is the law of the land, and he hasn't been convicted of a crime, so to take away his weapons is probably a violation, in my opinion. This is somebody who might face retribution of some sort from leftist terrorists who would come after him, which is why they're keeping his address a secret. Stands to reason he probably should have the ability to defend himself. He's not been proven guilty of anything, and I got to be honest, I'm not entirely convinced he will be. But there's a lot of stories about the left really tried pushing this. Kyle Rittenhouse's disappearance, the absurdity of cash bail. What is this one? Oh, yeah. Kyle Rittenhouse hires Wesley Snipes' tax lawyer, Robert Barnes. Oh, that's not that big of a story, but something to add to the mix. So we have this narrative being pushed by the far left, claiming that he disappeared, he vanished, when in reality, that's not the case. The lawyers have been in communication with the judge. The judge agreed what they did was the right thing. And, well, it's a media lie. It's the easiest way to put it. There's more. I don't want to just talk about the Rittenhouse story. So I do have another sort of extension on media lies and the manipulation and the culture war. Following, the Capitol riots, we heard this story about Officer Sicknick, and they said that he died because he was attacked at the Capitol. Now, the reason I think these stories are relevant to each other is the media manipulation around all of it. We're fighting a culture war. You can call it a fifth generational civil war. You can call it whatever you want. There are media outlets on the left that are doing everything in their power to lie and manipulate, and it works. Regular people just believe whatever they're told. I shouldn't say regular people. There are, people who don't think critically and they really do just believe all this stuff. And it is so insanely frustrating. Why do you believe it? They lie all the time. Gelman amnesia effect. Google it. People just buy it up. So we saw this story about Officer Sicknick. They said that he was hit over the head with a fire extinguisher. They said it killed him. He was laid to rest in the Capitol. Now it turns out we don't know why he died. We have no idea. And that's why no one's been charged, because apparently the guy was texting that he was fine after everything. A video came out where they said you could see the fire extinguisher get thrown at the cop's head, but whatever cop this was, they were wearing a helmet and seemed to be completely fine. And now the official reporting is it wasn't the blow to the head. We don't know. We have no idea. I guess he died shortly after the riots at the Capitol. So maybe it was related. Maybe it wasn't. The left wants it to be, though. The Democrats will push this narrative. Much like Kyle Rittenhouse, they're going to use the most extreme interpretation of what happened. Fox News reports, a month after Capitol riot, autopsy results pending in Officer Brian Sicknick death investigation. His official cause of death has not been released and no one has been charged. They say exactly 1 month since the rioters stormed the Capitol, fallen Capitol Police Officer Sicknick's official cause of death has not been released. Metro PD Chief Robert J. Conti confirmed at a news conference Thursday that the investigation into Sicknick's death is ongoing, stressing that the police continue to comb through video evidence in the latest update provided by authorities. Conti, speaking vaguely, also suggested Sicknick's injuries may not have been immediately visible. That determination is made by the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner. So MPD's role in that is to make sure the medical examiner has all of the evidence they need to make that determination, he said. In this situation, with the Capitol insurrection, there were hundreds of videos and all that kind of stuff. That stuff is being gone through and funneled over to them. How did this narrative emerge? Well, it was a report that witnesses said they don't know why he died, but he was feeling unwell after being bashed over the head with a fire extinguisher. That's what they said. Witnesses reported. The media picked it up and everyone just believed it. It's really quite remarkable that, to be honest, we fall for this. I did. I believed it. Many conservatives did. Conservatives, unfortunately, while mostly criticize the media, will still often believe it much of the time. And then we end up in situations like this where we know these journalists lie, cheat, and steal, yet for some reason we all just keep believing it in one of the most profound instances of Gell-Mann amnesia we have ever seen. Now, I've seen people say to me, Tim, you've got to get away from the mainstream media. Listen, I'll tell you, when I get things wrong, often it is me citing sources, and then I have to go back and correct them when those sources are updated. Typically what I'll do is I'll try to fact check the stories and pull up a bunch of different versions of similar stories and then see what their source material is and see if the source material adds up. Sometimes they just say they have sources or it was a police officer, so you can only just trust what you trust. You know, either they're completely lying. I think for the most part, mainstream news outlets and, most outlets in general are probably not lying. But they do use framing devices. There's a story I covered yesterday where they reported that a doctor stole the vaccines for his family, whereas the New York Times says he was saving the vaccines from expiration. Framing is everything. You can say he stole them to benefit his friends, or you can say he was trying to save the vaccine that was going to go to waste. However you want to interpret it. If you look up Sicknick, you Google this, there's tons of stories about how he was killed and how he was laid to rest. Democratic leaders honored Officer Brian Sicknick at the U.S. Capitol ceremony. And now we have the latest update with even CNN saying it. Well, for one, we don't know exactly what did kill him. They're still trying to maintain it was the result of the riots, but they're saying this. Officer Brian Sicknick's death could have been caused by bear spray, investigators believe. Really? A fatal reaction to bear spray? Well, we don't know for sure right now. Maybe it was related to the events because it happened just afterwards, but the media was pumping out this narrative all day and night, and they use it, and they convince people of it. And now you'll see people who are grossly misinformed, and they'll never be corrected because the lie travels halfway around the world before the truth straps on his boots. Here's the story. Officer Sicknick died the day after pro-Trump rioters attacked the Capitol. One theory being investigated by authorities is that he may have been hit with bear mace or another chemical irritant sprayed by the rioters during the mayhem and suffered the reaction. He was on duty as rioters breached the Capitol on January 6th and was injured while physically engaging with protesters. With protesters, his department said. Interesting choice of words. In police audio played during Donald Trump's impeachment trial in the Senate, officers could be heard screaming that they were being attacked with bear spray. Senator Mitt Romney has also said that Officer Eugene Goodman, who helped lure the mob away from lawmakers inside the Capitol, had told him he had to breathe a lot of bear spray and tear gas and that he was nauseated during the attack. Officer Sicknick, a 13-year veteran of the force, lay in honor at the Capitol building last week, where Joe Biden and the First Lady paid their respects. It's an interesting narrative. The idea that maybe the bear spray caused this. All right, time to ban bear spray for police because the police don't use bear spray, but they use OC spray, chemical irritants on regular people. And it is sometimes lethal. These are called less lethal munitions because they can be lethal. If you're telling me that the pepper spray, the bear spray, the tear gas was what caused this, then maybe police shouldn't be allowed to have it. Is that the point? I think that is absurd, but it does raise an interesting question about the conflict in general. Is it just going to escalate from here? What we saw from the Trump supporters at the Capitol was they didn't use AR-15s or handguns. They used bear spray, potentially pepper spray. They're saying bear spray. We don't know for sure. What's going to be the next event? What's going to be the next big riot? What is Antifa going to use? Antifa already uses explosives. They go on to say more than 100 officers were injured. 100 officers were injured in the violence, including at least 15 who were hospitalized. The violence killed 5 people, including a female rider who was shot by law enforcement. Let's make one thing clear. The people who died, one person was trampled, I believe. One person, I think, had a heart attack. One person fell, and we don't know how the officer, Sicknick, lost his life. And this woman was shot in the neck because she was trying to climb up onto this window. And hey, look, man, people without guns storming into a building protected by people with guns, and these things kind of happen. I wish it didn't have to happen, like I said about Kyle Rittenhouse, and people who died. I wish it didn't have to happen. The problem we're facing in this country is, in my opinion, and I hate to be pessimistic, unsolvable. Well, I shouldn't say unsolvable. It just means the solution is going to be brutal, and you're not going to like it. People are shooting each other. People are fighting. The media is lying. You'll watch a video like mine, and they'll, to the best of my ability, I'll break down what was going on with Kyle Rittenhouse. Like I said, this is a video titled "Actual Witness to Kenosha Kid Shooting Tells the Insane Story About How It All Went Down." And we had more than one witness. 1.1 million views from an actual witness explaining what happened. Does it matter, though? Honestly, I don't think so. The left won't accept it. They'll say that those are just right-wing shills trying to defend the far right, or they're far right. When these journalists are anything but. They're not far right. But that's what the media will do because it's about tribalism. It was really interesting in that interview. We basically talked about this, that simply by telling people the truth, they get labeled as conservative or right wing when the DC riot squad are not political. They don't post about politics. They just report on the ground. But it doesn't matter. We're in more than a culture war. We are in a fifth generational civil war, and the left controls the cultural institutions so they can lie all day and night and convince unsuspecting people who don't think critically and don't investigate to believe it. They will. As for channels like this, well, we run the risk of getting banned. So that's why we have timcast.com and, we have the Timcast IRL podcast set up and exclusive members only content. The point is, we're up against a giant machine that wants to cheat to gain power. And it works. It does. But maybe not forever. Michael Malice is very optimistic. Maybe these institutional news outlets that control this narrative are going to lose all their power. I mean, they're waning. Their ratings are collapsing. Without Trump, they got nothing. So they're desperately trying to hold on, but it might not work in the end. They may actually just collapse. They only stayed alive this long because of Trump. We'll see how that plays out. For the moment, for the time being, Kyle Rittenhouse is still free pending trial. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.